In the second film of this series, celebrating the 950th anniversary of the Battle of Hastings, from the first episode we know for sure that the statement, the Battle of Hastings was fought by the English and the French on the 14th of October 1066. Only the year is correct, because it wasn't the French, it was the Vikings, it wasn't the English, it was the Germans, and as for the date, the 14th of October, it was the 14th of October by the old Julian calendar, but by the new recent Gregorian calendar, it should be celebrated on the 20th of October. So finally we come to the realisation that only the year is correct. Never mind all that, let's go on to the actual battle. The Battle of Hastings, fought 950 years ago by the French Vikings and the German English. The Abbey upon which the battle was fought, and which you can gain entry at different times, is not currently open. So I've taken the decision to film in the car park just because it's here and there's nothing else going on. There are no. The day of the battle started about 9 a.m. in the morning, and William had the lower ground. Harold was on the ridge, so they had a very good position in which to fight off the attackers. After a bit of messing about, William sent men rushing up the hill. I suppose I ought to do the reenactment at this point. Up the hill, you dirty, rotten German English bastards! We'll finish you off. But the English Germans knocked them right back down again. Get back off, French Vikings! And this carried on until lunchtime, at which point everybody stopped and they had a bite to eat. In fact, in those days, it was very common for villagers and people in the neighbourhood to take a seat, as it were, on a neighbouring hill to watch the action. So it was probably quite well. I don't know if they sold tickets or anything, but anyway. So there we are. So this carried on. They had lunch, got back to it in the afternoon, and William noticed that actually, because the Fyrd, who I've mentioned earlier, were not trained soldiers as such, they tended to get carried away, and he'd noticed once or twice that they'd had to be restrained by the more professional soldiers in Harold's army in terms of running down the hill after the French Vikings. So William came up with a plan, and the plan was that they would get the English to chase them down, and they'd carry on running, and then they'd encircle the idiots who'd run down the hill and demolish them. And this is what they did. So the English ran down the hill, and then there's nobody watching it. Okay, I'm going to be locked up in a minute. Anyway, and then they were taken, and they were surrounded by the French Vikings, who then chopped them to bits. At this point, the decimation of Harold's army began, and Harold on the hill, or Harrow on the hill, I used to live there. No. Anyway, Harold on the hill, at this point, maybe or maybe not, took an arrow in the eye. What is known is that he effectively was knocked down and killed by French knights, French Viking knights, let's be honest. And that was really it for him. So this was probably about 5 o'clock, and actually what they did do at the Battle of Hastings was invent the working day, starting at 5, stopping for lunch, starting at 9, stopping for lunch, and finishing at 5. So there we have it. Thank you. Now, the position where Harold died has been the subject of some controversy over the years. He ordered, apparently, allegedly, that the altar stone of the church of the Abbey to be placed where Harold was finally felled. And this seemed like a nice, respectful thing to do. And they put up a stone, subsequently saying, this is where we believe the altar stone was. In fact, a couple of years ago, there was a Time Team special on the whole Battle of Hastings, and they spent a fortune in terms of actually looking at how the ground lay in those days, what kind of soil there was and what people did, and eventually came to the conclusion that the altar stone was in the wrong position. And I will now take you to where they believe it was. One moment. the position where, look, someone's put some flowers there, that's nice, where Harold probably met his end. Having said that, if we turn round, you can see the walls in the distance here of the Abbey. It's probably only a couple of 100 yards from here where they thought he died originally. So, go figure. Was it worth all that time, money and expense to somehow try to prove that he died over there? Does anybody care? In fact, at the time, maybe William just said, oh, put the altar roughly where he died and left it at that. Who knows?
Something I need. Now tell me I've got something for you. Come on, come on, come on, do it. Come on, baby, do what you do right now.